How's it going, everybody? This is Chinkuza from Chinkuza Gaming. We're going to be going over today my take on three of the top decks in the standard format for Magic the Gathering. And again, I must iterate, this is my take on it. Not saying that this is for sure what it is. There's a lot of different tournaments going around and whatnot. I'm not saying these are the decks you have to play. It's just my take on what I consider to be, from what I've seen, some of the top decks that are three of the decks showing up in the top 8 in standard format. First one being, as we all know, Omnath, but more specifically, I'm going to be going over Omnath Ramp. I'm also going to be going over Rakdos Aggro and Dimir Aggro. These are what I've noticed to be the top 3 decks that are more consistently showing up in top 8 for tournaments. So first one being Omnath Ramp. And the reason why I list this one first is it's the most obvious. And main card being Omnath, of course, Locus of Creation. With the landfall ability, the first time you drop a land, you gain 4 life. Second time, you add a red, green, white, or blue, red, green, white, and blue mana to your mana pool. The third time, deal 4 damage to each planeswalker and each opponent. The important part being, it's not just limited to the opponents getting hit, but it also hits the planeswalkers. And the reason why that can be important is, say you're playing against Rakdos Aggro, and they've got Liliana on the board. They're getting close to being able to ultimate her, and where they can start reanimating at the beginning of every combat, which they can also utilize to boost other creatures that they had on the battlefield already by sacrificing creatures. Not only that, but we'll go over Rakdos Aggro. But yeah, things like that. Dealing with Chandra, dealing with Jace, dealing with Teferi. It's really good at hitting those. But you also, at the same time, simultaneously, you hit the player for 4, which can turn the tides of the game very fast. This is also a formidable deck because there are plenty of search spells in the standard format as we speak. Not just in the form of just regular spells, but you also have your adventure creatures that allow you to search. So the fact that you can sit here and throw multiple lands on the board in this format all in one turn really makes Omnath pretty beastly. That being said, also, because we have the adventure creatures, Lucky Clover is seen very widely in this deck as well. And what Lucky Clover does is it allows you to cast an extra adventure whenever the adventure triggers. So say you use Brazen Borrower and you have Lucky Clover on the field. Not only do you get to return just one creature or permanent to the owner's hand, but you actually get to hit 2 because Lucky Clover will duplicate the ability. So that's why it's pretty beastly. And and also with Lucky Clover, playing Edgewall Innkeeper keeps the draw mechanisms going. You can draw extra cards every time you play a creature that has an adventure ability. Again, Brazen Borrower. You got Lucky Clover on the field, return 2 creatures to their hand. Then you play Brazen Borrower and you draw 2 cards. Or you draw an extra card. Sorry, you draw 1 card. So, as you can see, it keeps your hand full, plus you're playing off the fact that you're running an adventurer. Then Omnath Ramp, one of my biggest reasons for liking this deck so much is the fact that you have access to 4 colors minimum. And so therefore you can stack your sideboard however you seem fit. Fill it, you've got 4 colors to access at minimum, 4 colors to access in order to better your game 2, game 3 playability. If you need extra cultivates, if you need extra land draw or land search, you can have that in your sideboard, swap it out if it calls for it. Say you need extra kill spells, well, you can have those in there. You got your burn you have access to. You get Ugin in the sideboard's not really that bad. It's a pretty good play. Having maybe an extra Shark Typhoon, that way you can get your little dude, get you a little flying shark on the field, that kind of stuff. So you can easily stack your sideboard, fill those 15 cards very easily because you have access to a minimum of 4 colors. And I say minimum because you can technically run all 5. Because if you've got Lotus Cobra in your deck, landfall ability, triggers, well, you can create a swamp to be able to play sorceries you need that require a swamp to cast. So, you could technically run, say, for example, Extinction Event in your sideboard if you've got Lotus Cobras in your main deck. You can have Kenrith main board or even sideboard and be able to utilize that reanimate ability if you have the Lotus Cobra. So that's something else to think about. It kind of opens up doors pretty quickly. Going on to Rakdos Aggro. Rakdos Aggro, I like this deck as well. It's a pretty fun deck. You've got Kroxa as the main creature in it. If you're not running for at least 3 or 4 Kroxa in your Rakdos Aggro, you're doing something wrong. Because Kroxa, for 1 mountain, 1 swamp, you have your upon entry, your opponent discards a card. If they cannot discard a non-land card when they do this, they take 3 points of damage. It also has the escape ability for 2 mountain, 2 swamp, and then you exile 5 cards from your graveyard, and you can bring it out on the field, trigger that ability again, and then when you attack the next turn, you trigger that ability again. You are destroying their hand as you speak, as you play. And on top of that, Kroxa is very affordable. To sit there and throw it out before non-escaped for 1 mountain, 1 swamp, and then it, 2 turns later, you got a mountain and a swamp on the field. Turn 4, you drop Kroxa, you escape Kroxa. Not a bad trade-off. There's plenty of removal and hand control in standard format right now. Especially, you got Duress. You've got Mind Drain. There's several different cards that allow you to take a peek at your opponent's hand and make them discard a card or even exile. Then on the removal side, you have removal from both the red and the black. So, you got access to Shock. You got access to Hagra, Marauder, you got Mauler. You've got access to technically, you've got access to Eliminate. You've got access to the red spell, that the cycling red spell that allows you to hit your opponent for for 4, or hit your opponent's flyers for 1 of their flyers for 4 damage, or you could destroy an enchantment. So you've got that. That's a great card to even have in there, especially if you come up against an opponent who's running Banishing Light, or you need to be able to deal with Angel of Destiny, what have you. You could hit Angel of Destiny with shock, then drop that, hit it for 4 more, kill Angel of Destiny. There's all different kinds of things you can do and add in the form of removal and hand disruption. And I love that. Then you have access to Liliana, which works as both hand disruption and removal, plus her ultimate for 7. You remove 7 loyalty counters, and you create a token that allows you to reanimate at the beginning of every combat, or at the beginning of your combat, rather. Now, that ability in itself is amazing because in this deck, you're running a bunch of small dudes, and a lot of them have an ability that if they get sacrificed, something happens, or if you sacrifice a creature, XYZ happens. So, you sit there and you combo that with the ultimate ability, you're sitting pretty decent. And one of the best things is because it is aggro, it runs on low-cost creatures that do all kinds of things and fills your graveyard to help with Liliana's ultimate. So everything's low cost, everything's affordable. You're fast, you're quick, in your opponent's face. Come at me, bro. And I love it. I love it. That's why I think this is one of the decks you're going to see a lot more of. Then we got Dimir Aggro, which generally is run in the form of Rogue Tribal. It can be heavy mill and control very easily. Blue and black, always known for control and mill. And with rogues, you got a lot of rogues out there. Hey, when this enters the battlefield or another rogue enters the battlefield, your opponent mills. When it hits or one of your rogues hits, your opponent mills. So, you've got that aspect. It's very easy to go the mill route. That's actually what I play. You got access to Xerath, who's a 5-drop, 1 swamp, 1 island, 3 others, with the ability of, for 1 swamp, 1 island, and 2 others, you can return an unblocked rogue to your hand and play Xerath tapped and attacking. And then when he deals damage to a player, you reanimate. Like, okay, so you dealt with my Wind Rider robber or runner, Wind Rider runner, who was milling you for 1 every time you hit him. Well, guess what? I just hit you with Xerath, and now he's back. So it's a lot of fun. Oh, you dealt with my my flying rogue who mills you for 2 whenever he enters the battlefield. Guess what? He's back. Mill 2 more. That kind of stuff. Then you got access to Rankle, a 4-drop flyer with haste. 2 swamps, 2 others with haste. And when she deals damage to a player, you can choose one of the following or any combination of the following, which is everyone discards. Can't go wrong with that. Lose a life and draw a card. And that's for everyone. Everyone loses 1 life and draws a card. Everybody gets a card, but everybody gets to lose life. And then you also have the ability to make everybody sacrifice a creature. That could be the turning point of the game. It very well could very easily be the turning point of the game. Because if they only have 1 creature, guess what? Say goodbye to your creature. You get access to Drowning Lock, which for 1 swamp and 1 island, you throw it out. You can counter target spell that has converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of cards in your opponent's grade. But you also can say, well, you know what? I'll let that hit because they got less cards than what that card costs. When it hits the field, throw out Drowning Lock, and after you say you swing with your flyers and make them mill a couple more, you throw down Drowning Lock. Once they got a few more cards in their graveyard, and you remove it, because it also counts as a removal spell. You can either counter a spell or remove a creature from the field whose converted mana cost is equal to or less than the amount of cards they have in their graveyard. And with mill, they're going to have cards in their graveyard. And then one of my favorite cards, you heard me talk about it in Omnath, Brazen Borrower. You get access to Brazen Borrower. For one island, one other, return target permanent to its owner's hand. That's the adventure spell. Then, after you cast the adventure spell, it goes into exile. For 2 islands and one other, you can bring that SOB in. He's flash flyered, who can't block any creatures other than other flyers. Well, guess what? For 3 mana, I'm bringing them back at the end of your turn, and I'm hitting you in the face for 3. So it's a fun deck. It's a fun deck. I do highly recommend checking it out if you have a chance. Again, this is my take on these decks, and this is my take on what I consider to be the 3 main decks that are in Standard at the moment. My puppy's moving. He says, "I'm done sleeping. You talk too much." But anyways, why are these 3 decks so dominant? Well, one, they're very consistent. They have the consistency. There's not a lot of decks out there that have been fine-tuned yet to have such consistency. They all have a way to control the board state, which is super important. They have ways of dealing with things that hit the board. They have ways of keeping things from hitting the board. And not only that, they've got ways to deal with your hand. So if they can't deal with your hand and get the hand disruption, guess what? They've got the ways to kill what does hit the board, or they got ways to keep it from hitting the board. And there's loads of creatures that get in for the damage in the format. There always has been, but what makes this more significant now is there's not as many all-inclusive board wipes as, that are actually affordable and usable and make sense to use other than a one of in the format right now. So with there not being as, feasible board wipes, having these decks that are like this, you're not going to see as much control because, well, unfortunately, you need at least 2 extinction events in hand, in order to truly deal with the board, unless you happen to fall into a point where all the creatures on the board have even mana cost, or all the creatures on the board have odd mana cost. It's rare you're going to see that, though. They run, like I said before, they run the hand disruption, and the hand disruption hurts. If you ain't got, if you're literally depending on what's coming up off that top deck, because you ain't got nothing in your hand, and your opponent's got a full grip, it's rough. Everyone's been there. It's rough. It's almost disheartening until you pull that, trump card out of the blue without knowing, which happens very rarely. And then on top of that, there are loads of kill spells that are affordable again. And there are a whole lot of creatures that can be there for more than just swinging. I mean, you've got creatures now that double as control. Like, it's freaking awesome. I love it. And there's a lot more of them, and they are a lot more affordable again. And so the fact that we've got all this, and you've got the consistency of the decks, that's why you're seeing them in the top 8 so much. Is they found they found that sweet spot. They fine-tuned it, and these decks abuse the heck out of what we got for the format right now. A lot of people have been asking, if I think Omnath's going to end up banned. Well, I'm going to address that right this second, right now, and I'm going to let y'all know I don't foresee it being banned. I don't see Omnath being banned, and the reason being is Uro got banned because six of the decks in top 8 on tournaments on average were Euro. And basically ran almost to the T the exact same deck list. And that's why they had to get rid of it, because Wizards wanted diversity in the format. And when you have 6 decks placed in top 8 that are all the same deck, you don't have the diversity. So with Euro gone, we are actually seeing diversity finally. And this is why I don't think Omnath will be banned. Because you have 6 different Omnath decks. You've got the Rakdos and Dimir aggro decks. Adventures is still popular. You got 4-color Adventures, Teamer Adventures. So 5-color Adventures has even made a scene. You got mono red aggro that is actually still going strong. Red deck wins is still a thing. It always will be a thing, but it is you're gonna see it coming up. You're gonna see it coming up a lot more. A lot more people are playing red deck wins. Mono green is still around. You got that mono green ramp. So, there's so many decks out there that are still being played and accessed and actually placing, that I really don't see Omnath being banned, because they got the diversity. The whole point of the getting rid of Euro was to further diversify the format, and they did that. So Omnath is going to be here to stay. That's my personal opinion. If it happens, I'll eat my words. I just do not see that banning Omnath would be an efficient way to force the more diversity in the decks that are being played. So that's my take on the whole Omnath thing. It's a great card. It's still easy to deal with. Banishing Light, Graveyard Hate, to keep it from being reanimated. You've got kill spells that nail it. I mean, it's too easy to deal with, and it doesn't have an escape ability, so really it is what it is. What do I think we can expect to see in upcoming weeks in Magic the Gathering? Personally, I think we'll see a little bit more control showing up. Esper control, Sultai control, Dimir control, even mono blue control. Dimir Mill is still a form of control. Mono blue Mill is still a form of control. I could see all that happening, and I could see it being on the rise. Will it be super feasible to play in main tournaments? Only time will tell. I do foresee Mill being more of a thing, especially with Dimir. So you'll see a lot of Dimir decks that run the Mill. I do foresee Graveyard Hate having a strong presence as well. Tormod's Crypt really does help with dealing with escape cards, dealing with Kroxa and the rest of them. Aggro will dethrone. Personally, I think once we get some more fine tuning done, Aggro is going to end up dethroning Omnath and being the top deck. Personally, that's my opinion. Aggro is going to find a way into that top seat. So that's my take. That's what I think. If you enjoyed the video so far, or if you've enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. Hit the subscribe, turn on the notifications. That way you can get more updates as I make more videos. I do plan on making this a regular thing once or twice a week, releasing videos. You can also find me on Twitch Mondays through Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern to 11 Eastern, sometimes a little bit later. I'll have the links in for Twitch and my social media in the description below. So make sure you give me likes, follows, subscribes as you see fit. And, you know, the more support I get, the more we get to do with this channel. And I love it. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you. So y'all have a good one. Later.